That's fine. We'll we'll do it. All right, here we go. Hey, and welcome to I Want to Be Your Canary. This is a Final Fantasy podcast. Tonight, I am joined with my two good friends, Mr. Scooter
Hey, everybody.
and Mr. Dyston.
Let's rock and roll. Talk some Final Fantasy.
I like it. I like it. Oh man, hey, welcome to another episode of I Want to Be Your Canary, Final Fantasy podcast. You may notice this quality is a lot better than our last one because our last one is a YouTube feed pretty much. So just wanted to throw that out there. So it looks sounds a little
Before you
different.
count your chickens, let the eggs hatch, okay? We're not there yet.
Oh, that is true. I'm assuming that this one's going well.
This one's going to be perfect.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, well, and I do want to say this, that the last one was not a Scooter production. I just want to
Wait.
clear your name there, Scoot.
Oh, I don't sign off on any of these. What are you talking about?
Oh, man. Well, anyway, gentlemen, are you ready to talk a little supporting characters today?
Let's
Yes,
lift up
please.
let's lift up these main heroes as high as they can go. Let's do it.
You know, I got this idea from a Final Fantasy account that I follow on Twitter, who actually said that they were encouraged and inspired by our podcast to kind of start their own thing. So I thought that was pretty rad. And so they said, "Hey, we kind of did this, and we want you to like." They'll do like voting, and one that they did was best supporting character.
Right.
So I thought that's actually a really interesting and kind of cool idea. Who's the best supporting character in a Final Fantasy?
I mean, for me, it just brings up so many, memories and strong memories of those supporting characters of like the ones you turn to, rely on as the
For
story
sure.
goes on. So I think this will be a great topic.
And I don't know about you guys, but I mean, and there's several of the Final Fantasy games where some of the supportive characters like stand out the most. They're my most like favorite characters from the game.
Definitely.
And then
Definitely.
and then we get a whole bunch of extra characters though that could be honorable mentions. I feel like,
And,
but,
and, and we have some real stinkers.
right.
Yeah.
So
There
yeah, no,
are
this will be good.
there are some great supporting characters, and there are some pretty forgettable ones as well.
Absolutely.
But not everybody can, but that's not fair, I guess, because there's not every supporting character can be like the supporting character, right?
Right.
So I
Right.
guess you kind of
Yeah.
have to pick and choose, like, who
Yeah, I,
is.
I I agree with that, but it seems like you should have at least an interesting story. Like you
Mhm.
should be able to be like integrated well into the story. And some characters, they just seem like they just fall right into the background, don't matter at all.
Yeah, and it kind of brings up something that you talked about on a previous show, Dice. And that was, and it's going to be a little bit of a stretch maybe to talk about, but Chekhov's gun, and it's like, isn't that what it's called?
Mm,
It,
Yes.
where it's like if that character's there, they should be there for a reason,
absolutely.
and that reason should be pretty apparent. And if they're just kind of, I don't know, like characters, it's like, well, why introduce them? Why not make them, more influential characters? But
Sure.
I,
Yeah.
I'm looking at you, Irvine. Final Fantasy VIII. I'm looking at you, man. Um,
Mr. Cowboy.
yeah, and I'm playing through that right now, actually. There are a lot of just great Final Fantasy characters that are, not your main go-to, but ones that are like, man, they could that could have been a main character. That could have been the go-to
Absolutely.
character.
Yeah.
So, go
I
ahead.
mean, again, well, not to jump in here, but the one that automatically stands out to me is Balthier again in 12 is that one, he feels like a main character that is a side character. You know what I mean?
And not only just that for that character, but I mean, oftentimes that's like his direct quote is like, "I'm the leading man."
Yeah,
He,
and
he's quoted as saying that like several times. Oh, here comes the leading man.
Yeah.
but it works. So
Well, thanks for taking mine.
okay,
Appreciate
I've
that.
got another one. I've got another one.
The big jerk. No, I'm just kidding. Cause but that's the thing that is exactly the point. Is they've made some characters that are even better than the main character, I think. And so before we jump too much into it, kind of give people, let people know what our thought process was when we were ranking these characters. Now, I kind of sent out a little rubric as to how we were going to grade them, or to think about them. And a few things. There was, how integral were they in the story? Were they good as a character? Were they well developed? Were they good in battle? And also, how well did they relate to the other kind of cast? So,
right. Okay. So I've got three
that
jump out to me immediately. And thank you again for being the honorable producer behind the scenes and setting all of this up for us, so we don't have nothing to talk about. But I like that criteria.
Yeah, I figure there's going to be other things that you guys are probably going to think of that was like, oh, well, I put this in here because.
God, one of the things that, like, when we started talking about this best supporting character, that immediately I thought about is those poor earlier games that didn't have voice acting. So some of the more modern games, those characters really benefit from that added element of voice acting.
Yes, yeah, they absolutely do.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and there's also a part of it that is the other way around, I think.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I got a least favorite character in mind whose voice acting killed it for me.
Yep. Yeah, and I am excited to hear what those are, because I wonder how similar those might be. All right, so Scoot, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, sure. I'll just go with kind of an easy one that jumped out again besides Balthier to me is so how integral were they to the story? Were they a good character overall and all, well thought out and all this? Mm-hmm. Number 10, the side character in the introduction and with Blitzball and everything, and you being the little brother character as the main character almost. I really think they did a good job with that one too. And for whatever reason, the name is blanking me at this very moment.
Wakka?
Wakka, thank you. I don't know why I forgot that.
Wakka.
And even the voice acting in that one. I mean,
coming out of left field on this one,
right? Yeah. So as a good side character, though, I mean, but think about it. The main character in that game was pretty good. Wakka was.
I gotta say, I'm a little shocked.
I mean, I think a lot of people probably are, but who cares?
Yeah. No, please go on.
So, I mean, it's one of those things. You're dropped into this unknown world in the far future. You meet Riku, who doesn't even speak your language, but then you happen upon Wakka in his village, and it's like, oh, okay, life will be okay. And he lost his brother just a few years before in a war or something. So he's, emotionally looking to replace that, and you happen to come along. And as a side character, I mean, I think it worked well. He is a very, love-hate kind of character, but for a side character, yeah.
Whew, man, I hear what you're saying. I respect what you're saying. I vehemently disagree with what you're saying.
Please lay it out in all detail, because this is what the show is for.
Wakka's okay. He's okay. He just, I don't know. For me,
no. Don't say okay. Go all the way. Lay it out.
When I think of the best character, supporting character from 10, I have an immediate answer for 10. It's Elrond.
Yeah, I think so too with that.
I thought his character was the best fleshed out, most interesting, and even when it comes to combat, phew, Auron's a pretty big beast.
No, now listen.
I want
Now,
him going into battle with me.
look, I won't disagree with you, but I don't think he is as integral to the story as Waka is to Titus.
Really?
And no,
Okay.
because he's much more of like a father figure, and Titus and Waka are like brothers in this. They have a much, and even as the story progresses, I mean, I know Arn is such a central. I mean, he's all of our favorite character out of that whole game. Arn's probably the best, hands
Uh-huh.
down. But it as a side.
I needed you to say that. Okay.
Oh no, 100%. I mean, the theme song in his alone is one of the best songs that I thought they've ever made. But I think for our criteria that we laid out tonight, I was trying to think a little outside of the box here. So I thought Waka was a more important character as a supporting character to Titus as the main character.
He's definitely supportive, like as far as the storyline goes. But when it comes to combat, my boy Waka.
No. I mean, besides what his, you have to get his ultimate weapon to make him kind of useful in that game. But
Now, I really like what you said, Scoot, about him being integral to Titus' story, because I think that's true.
Yeah.
Because Auron withholds a lot of information, and I know that we have somebody listening right now that's in the midst of playing 10, so I don't want to blow this. But you're right, because when when Titus shows up on that island, and Waka's there, Waka is the medium that allows Titus to get to Yuna and to allow them to go on to their story, like to move on in that story.
And he's always there to be that supporting character. Auron wasn't always there, it felt like. He came and went and was there at the important moments. But Waka was there from Auron, the very beginning scene and all that, I guess. I don't know. This is hard, but I'm sticking by it. I'm going with Waka as my first choice.
I like it.
Fight me.
I think Waka complimented Titus well, and I think that you are absolutely right in the fact that he helped develop Titus' story a lot more than Auron did. Like I said, Auron withheld a lot of information that was pretty important.
Right. But that's kind of the point of his character too.
Yeah.
And yeah. How well did they relate to the other characters? I mean, there's the whole Waka Lulu thing, and then the brother relationship. But yeah,
I would definitely agree with you that Waka, as far as the relationship with the other characters of the game, was much more important than the relationship with Auron. He was much more dependent on his relationship with Titus.
Right. So just as a pure supporting character, that's my first. Okay, so
nice.
Anyway,
I like it. Dice, give us one. A great supporting character.
Man, I have two in mind. One of them was story driven. One of them was straight combat driven.
All right,
who do you want? Who do you want first?
We'll go combat driven. Let's go with that one first.
I got to go with my girl Aerith. Those limit breaks were broken
at the beginning of the game. Absolutely.
She was Now, yes, you're completely right. The one downfall to the Aerith as the best supportive character is that you don't have her for the entire game.
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!
Yes. So I did think about that as well. I thought about that, and that you're completely right. It's difficult to call someone a best supporting character when you can't use them the entire game. But, whew, man, what was her limit break? Gospel truth, or was that her final limit break?
Sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, just
like that.
Fully heal, HP, MP, invincibility for so many turns, remove all status ailments. Like, that's unheard of.
It's the best white mage out there. Yeah.
Here is something that, like, when you said combat driven, I was expecting more like of a heavy hitter. Now, I would
but that's
argue
not support character.
Yeah, I know, but I would argue that character driven, story driven, Aerith is probably one of the most integral to any Final Fantasy.
And she is.
I mean, she is a love interest in a weird, like, Cloud trying to, is it Tifa? Is it Aerith? Is it Barrett? Like trying to navigate this, like, emotional aspect of it. Um, she is an ancient, so she's kind of important to the whole story. Like, as a
Right.
supporting character, I think it would be tough to argue that Aerith's not one of the most integral and most important supporting characters based on what she does.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you. But the one argument against that, and it goes for combat as well, is that, well, she's not there the whole game.
Mm, yeah, and
Right.
I
Love my
understand.
girl Aerith.
And even now in the new game, apparently she knows more than any of us. So it'll be interesting to see how that character,
So
kind
I
of
and
turns out.
I will say. So I went with Aerith. But man, this is my boy Kate Sith.
Oh,
Back when no, and
oh,
hear me out here, Kay. Hear me out. Back in my Final Fantasy VII days, back when I was playing, I remember fighting Emerald Weapon and getting my butt handed to me, Kay. And I said, you know what? I'm gonna throw the Hail Mary pass. I'm throwing for the touchdown pass. I bought Kate Sith in with me to the battle, and I can't remember what that move is called, but it's called like Joker's game, or no, that's the bad one.
yeah.
It's
That's the one
but
you
but
always get.
basically, yeah, it's an instant death for the boss, and I got it on Emerald Weapon,
Oh
and
man.
it was incredible.
Oh
Kate
jeez.
Sith to the rescue.
That's
I could
whack,
I
man.
could I couldn't believe my eyes.
You know, I
But any character that has a chance of getting you an instant game over is not a best supportive character.
that is an all or nothing character right there, and I
It
expected
is.
more out of Case. That no, back to Aerith really quick. Aerith in the remake is, um, I thought the remake in the voice acting did like Aerith a big favor. It's like, oh, she's as sweet as I always thought she would
Yep,
be,
absolutely.
and I just Aerith is like so important, and I think that she does make a great secondary character. And it's tough because there's not a whole lot of games where it's like your secondary characters, like there's a couple in Final Fantasy 7 that you could choose. I would argue it's more between like her and Tifa than anybody else as like the the supporting characters, but they're both equally as strong
Mhm.
in their roles. And as far as combat goes, I mean, Tifa is, she tough. So, all right. Well, I will do mine here. My best supporting character, or one of my favorite supporting characters, rather, I would say, would be Delita from Final Fantasy Tactics.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good one.
And how integral it's just a weird dynamic between him and Ramza, because
Hmm.
they're like boys at the beginning. They're best friends. Delita's like a brother to Ramza, but Ramza's family decides to go and be all crazy. And Delita says, I'm gonna kind of split from this, and I won't recognize Ramza. I don't recognize you anymore as a friend, but a foe. Even though they're that game's just so weird in that everybody's getting played by somebody. So it's like it's tough to say, well, Delete is doing he's being a bad guy, he's doing the wrong thing, because he's doing what he thinks is right, in trying to protect was it Alma, I
Hmm.
think, and he's trying to protect her. Ultimately, that's his goal, but he's also there's some manipulation there. But I just love that dynamic between the two. He's really well developed in battle. I mean, he's pretty tough. You don't really fight with him as much as you do against him. But the relationship that he has with Ramza, because I always remember thinking like, I hope he comes back. I hope he comes back. I hope
Yeah,
he comes
yeah.
back. But I think Delita was a really strong character. I mean, his sister is killed by Algus, and I think that's the Death Corps. Um, on that in that scene on the bridge, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh man. And then you just kind of have this very finicky relationship with him, where it's like, are we on the same team? Are we not? No, we don't like each other. Okay. But I think Delita is a really strong supporting character. Supporting in a weird way. Supporting
I was
as
gonna say it's almost not an antagonist, but yeah, it is a weird supporting character in a way for sure, and a very good one though.
yeah, yeah. Like he doesn't support the way that Aerith does, or
Right,
Tifa
right.
does.
That was right.
But as far as making, helping the story. So I love Delita. I've always thought he's a great character. So that is mine. Scoot, we'll do another good one, and then we'll get to make fun of some people.
Geez, okay, you caught me off guard there. I again was gonna just talk about Balthier in that regard.
Okay, let's do it. Let's talk about Balthier.
I mean,
On
but yeah,
Solo, man.
we've discussed this before a few times. Is that the game was almost developed, or the story was almost developed around him originally? Apparently, I don't know if that's true, but it feels like it could have been, and he loves to proclaim that, like we've said. So it's a really good character that you don't get to play as the main character. As far as the story driver, he definitely is there. He is not a supporting character like Aerith in that regard in battle. I think he's more of a frontline kind of guy, or a ranger. But as far as driving the story and being in a relation to the main character, I guess, is that he kind of pushes Vaughn to become what he wants to be. It's his idol, I guess, a sky pirate. And so in that regard, yeah, it pushes the story. But I'm sure I could come up with a better one if you give me just a second to think on it.
Well,
And he's definitely a fan favorite too, especially when it comes to 12. Most people who played 12 agree, and I should say most, but I would say majority of people really enjoyed Balthier's character from 12.
yeah.
But there are some haters out there. Some of the people didn't like how kind of egotistical or narcissistic he was.
Oh man,
It kind of rubbed him the wrong way.
well, it's like how do you say I don't like his ego, I don't like how full of himself he is, but you like Zidane and you like Titus, and even to a degree, Vaughn. Those are characters that are very kind of self-absorbed and egotistical, especially Titus. But I think Balthier is one of the best characters, because I think that 12 would have been better told through Balthier as the main character than as through Vaughn. I feel like he just has more
I agree.
Skin in the game.
I agree, with him being an ex-judge and all of that. But at the same time, I feel like it kind of was, in a weird way, it was he's such a big part of the story that we do get to see his side through cutscenes and all this stuff enough that it fleshes itself out. At least for me.
And we haven't said her name yet, but Balthier and Fran's relationship really adds a lot to the game.
Yeah.
That's probably one of my favorite duos in the Final Fantasy series.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, trying to think, what was the last thing on the list here?
Etc.
Okay.
But it's how they relate to others. And Balthier is either hot or cold, I feel like. With Fran, like him and Fran connect. And it's like, and if he doesn't like what you're doing, like he is Sky Pirate through and through, and he's in it for him. He's in it for him and Fran.
Yeah, but he's predictable that way. So, as a supporting character, you don't feel like you're left out, because he's doing his Sky Pirate thing, I guess. Because, again, that's what Vaughn's goal is. So, I don't know. Yeah, I guess I'll just leave it there. Balthier for my second.
I am just gonna pile on that because I think Balthier was my favorite. I just loved his personality. I thought he was a lot more interesting than Vaughn, which almost makes him less of a less good supporting character because he's almost usurping and kind of like upstaging the main character. But he was kind of like that idol. He was kind of like that role model. He did kind of forge Vaughn into who he wanted to be. So he was very influential. And, you know, as far as how good he was in battle, well, in the Zodiac Age, the new one, it's like you kind of build characters the way you want. Everybody gets a job and then everybody gets a sub. So it's like if you want him to be just a ripper, you can. If you want him to be more, you know, magey, you can do that as well. But
Right.
And I always think that's the weird. One of the things I don't like about some of the like the newer games, to where they allow all the characters. Oh, you can kind of choose which class, or you everybody can do everything.
Right.
You know, that kind of, I don't know. It just doesn't
is
rub
weird.
me the right way.
It is weird to see Balthier being a black mage or a white mage or something if you build him that way. Yeah. Instead of like,
and it's the same thing with Final Fantasy 13, because and there was nothing wrong with the paradigm system. I think it could have been good, but it did it okay. There certainly are characters in 13 that are better in certain paradigms, but it does get a little annoying, I think, when every character can do everything.
see, we've talked about this, and this is kind of like a D&D trope thing. Like, if you have 3 characters in a D&D party, and as someone who plays D&D, you'll know, it's like, if you have 3 people that are specialized, you're missing out on something big somewhere else. Because you're either a tank, you are a like magic user, like an offensive magic user, a defensive magic user, and then somebody who is, you know, like more of like a ranger sort. And if you take one of those out, I mean, think of D&D, if you take one of those out, you're in trouble. And so that's why I think in 3-person Final Fantasy games, if you take a look at any of the Final Fantasy games, whenever they do a 3-person battle system, they give everybody the ability to do anything. But whenever they've gone 4 or more, then they will lock it down and say, okay, you have to choose what role you are going to be. Sans Tactics, that one, everybody could be whatever, you know, they wanted, but their jobs are specialized. They can't do it all, but in 7, you can have Kira, Kiraga, Bolt 3, summons, and a Buster Sword, right? And tear it up. So that's one of the things about 3-man Final Fantasy or 3-person parties in Final Fantasy is I was thinking about it in D&D and how much you miss out on something that you would miss out on something if they were set characters. You either miss out on one of the 4 that I talked about.
Yeah.
Us nerds are passionate about this.
I mean, what are you going to do, Colin?
I don't know. I just get all fired up right before I go to bed. It was good. It was good. So yeah, Balthier, back to that, I think is awesome.
Yeah. And to toss in my late actual one instead of Balthier, I was going to say Laguna in number 8 as a supporting character. I've always enjoyed. You know, obvious shout out to Zell, but I always thought Laguna's story, the music, the whole dream episode bit, and how it relates to the main characters is really cool.
Those are supporting characters like we've never really seen supporting characters in a Final Fantasy.
In a way, for sure.
Yeah. So Dice, what was one of your other favorites, Big Boss?
Guys, how have we not said his name yet? One of the characters who this podcast is named after.
Oh boy.
My boy Vivi.
Yeah.
Come on. Give my boy Vivi some love.
That is a good one. Tell us why.
and you talk about character development. The side plot of Vivi himself, he transforms from this shy, unconfident character who learns that he is going to die. He struggles with existential crisis, something we all struggle with.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, "You know what? No, I'm gonna voice myself. I'm gonna fight for what I believe is right." Yeah, I thought the character Vivi. It's been several years since I've played Final Fantasy VIII, but I remember even like as a young child, kind of like, oh yeah, I can I empathize with this guy.
Or you
Where
mean
do I
9?
what or nine? Excuse me. Where do I fit in the universe? It's something we all ask ourselves.
Yeah, it does. It's a cut. It's
And
yeah.
they really expressed it well through that character.
Yeah.
I go ahead, Scoot.
I mean, and as a supporting character, Vivi becomes the best black mage in the game at towards the end.
Absolutely.
You know, lights out. So in that regard, he's also really good in battle. And in regard to the main character, I think it helps Zidane discover who he is. You know, because he's always there to just help anybody according to himself, I guess. But he discovers more about himself through Vivi and that storyline. So yeah, I think Vivi's one of everybody's favorite characters for sure.
And as far as like, so many Final Fantasies are, um, so many Final Fantasies are kind of coming of age stories, and Vivi's coming of age was very different than a Cloud coming of age, a Squall coming of age, because you're right, he is figuring out, like, he is dealing with these existential questions that are like, at some point I am going to die. Why is it that why is it that things look like me do bad things? Where do I fit in? And his relationships to like Steiner and Garnet and Zidane and the other characters, it's just this constant like learning and taking in of these new things, and being like, even like Quina, you're taking in these new things, and he's just learning, like, this is how the world works, this is how people do things, this is how I'm supposed to act. So yeah, Vivi is, I mean, yeah, one of if not the best, I think, side characters in a Final Fantasy game. But
And quietly so too, though. I'm just trying to think back to some of the dialogue. Like there isn't a ton of dialogue that he has, but it's all very contemplative and introspective, and
Absolutely.
yeah,
And I would say, and there's probably more of the introspection early in the game with him, because he is a little bit more introverted when
Right.
the game starts, and very unconfident in himself. But kind of as that game progresses, he does become much more outspoken.
yeah, he does. And my cousin points out in the chat, he says the partnerships in battle is fun too. Like the way that him and Steiner could do the magic sword.
Yes, yeah. Hey, I totally forgot about that. Where you do the ice sword and the fire and all that stuff. Yeah, no, that's a good point. As a supporting black mage, that's very true.
Yeah, I think that you're right. Vivi is one of the best. Now, Dice, I know you said this earlier. So you're gonna bust out something from 6, and 6 is just kind of a weird game, because even though that game goes like is all about Terra as the main character, it's kind of like, all right, there's Terra, then there's Locke, and then there, like, you get those 3 other dudes like right at the same time. So it's kind of like, wait, okay, it kind of seems like they, as supporting characters, diluted Terra's main story a little bit, and that's why I didn't bring up 6, because I just kind of felt like Terra didn't have enough like in the spotlight like she should have,
Right,
because I
right.
thought that,
She's gone for so long.
yeah, she's gone for so long, and then those other dudes are kind of like, and they're fun characters. Like I enjoy them as characters, and they were cool, but I felt like, okay, well, Final
No,
Fantasy VI had so many characters.
I was
to
gonna
begin
say
with.
no, but I agree. Is that none of them stood out as dramatically as the other ones we've talked about so far? Because I was also looking at 6 in the page and trying to remember it. But yeah, Locke is a good character, but I don't know if I would say the best supporting character.
Yeah. Yeah, Locke and Edgar and oh man, who's the dude who Sabin, who
Saban and
suplexes the train.
Gal and
Yeah.
yeah.
Six
There's
had
a ton.
there's a
It
lot of great
was
things about six, but the amount of characters was just like holy smokes, like
it was a lot of characters for sure.
it was. Any other like honorable mentions that we need to talk about?
Colin, I do have some honorable mentions for you.
Oh,
Okay,
well, let's go.
And you know what? I was really thinking about this. We really rag on Final Fantasy 13. Okay, we do.
True.
But hey, they actually had a few decent characters. My boy Snow and my girl Fang were good characters.
Oh man.
Did you not like them?
I wasn't huge fans of them. I thought that Snow was a just more clownish emo Zell.
I was about to say similar. Yeah.
I can see why you would say that. I can see why you would say that. But we also, I mean, it's not all about just how clownish were they. It's also how good were they in battle.
Yeah.
And when it comes to Final Fantasy 13, as far as the battle system goes,
Mm-hmm.
especially for Fang was just this incredibly versatile character.
Yeah.
And now I'm being a little bit hypocritical right now because earlier I said I don't like that as much.
Mm-hmm.
However, when in Rome, if that's gotta be the game you're playing, hey, I guess you might as well use her.
Yeah.
I found myself using Fang a lot in my party compilation. She was a very versatile player. You could put her into any paradigm, and she seemed to just tear it up. It doesn't matter which party you were in.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that Final Fantasy 13 was a good game. I'm not going that far. I'm just showing them a little.
Okay, all right. One that we didn't talk about that did surprise me a little bit, and I think that deserves an honorable mention because of how story driven her role was Yuna. I mean,
Yeah.
I thought Yuna, but she's kind of a main character.
That's
I don't
the
know.
thing. Is that it's not directly supporting Titus in such. You're more
true.
all supporting Yuna, right?
That's true.
So,
Because I think about saying that as well, but that was the reason I didn't say Yuna, just because she seems like she's a main character.
yeah,
yeah, and I absolutely agree with you. I think that for sure she is
Okay.
should be a main.
honorable mention throughout most of the series is going to be Sid.
I absolutely wanted to say
I
that.
know that he is not always a good character, but for the most part, he is always there, doing some sort of machinery or airship or science or who
Well,
knows
so-
what. But
I mean, has he been in every game, or is it? It
Just
seems
not
like
the first one. He wasn't
majority
in the
of
first one.
yeah, not number one.
Yeah,
But,
iconic character. You almost like expect to see Sid. Like, how are they going to portray Sid in this game? It's kind of a fun reveal when they show Sid.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and he always has something to do. Well, not as always as big as others, but I was going to say like 12 is a great example of a good Sid in bad form.
Yeah,
But,
that was a good Sid though.
Yeah, that was.
He was
So,
whack.
and yeah, anyway, I think those are my good mentions.
I think
Yeah.
my
Go ahead, Colin. Go ahead.
I was gonna say an honorable mention that is gonna come from one of my favorites is Final Fantasy IV. That's gonna be Kain. And
I figured you'd
yeah,
say,
I gotta say Kain. I mean, he was good, and then he turns bad, and he's just an interesting dynamic. He
Right.
loves the love interest of Cecil, so it's kind of like this weird like relationship between all three of them. But I really liked Kain. I thought he was an awesome character. In battle, he was awesome. He has that jump ability. He's with you at the beginning, going through as this kind of story gets started, gets turned, comes back. But I really liked Kain. I thought for as little as in those earlier games, it's tough to have like this long history and plot behind, a cornerstone to a friendship or whatever. But I thought they did a pretty good job with Kane in that one, as he relates to Cecil as a supporting character.
Yeah. I mean, it's the core of that story almost at the beginning, especially, but 100%.
Mm-hmm. Dice, what were you gonna say? You look like you're gonna say
Just
something.
I gotta show some love to Red 13.
No.
Gotta show some love to my boy Red 13.
Yep.
Love him to death. Love my boy. And I was crushed when I was unable to play him in the Final Fantasy VII remake.
Yeah, he was there, but not. I know.
That's the way it goes.
Come on,
sometimes.
Square Enix, give him to me in part 2. Give him to me.
Well, hopefully that's a foregone conclusion that we're going to be able to play him. I mean, I not to go too far off the rails, but the Cait Sith scene in the remake was just like, what? Like, what purpose? What Chekhov's gun purpose did he have in that scene?
Yeah.
So, all right, let's go to worst. Our worst. Just the terrible, like, and yeah, for this I had to try and pick somebody that was closer, because it's easy to pick someone like, well, I don't want to say, but somebody who is so far removed from the main character that they just are a happenstance that they joined the party.
Right. So, yeah. So I don't know if you guys remember this one, but from kind of the beginning of a game where you wake up on a beach on a shore and you join this guy and he shows you how to play this game called Blitzball. So he's okay, but he wants to take you in as his younger brother. So it's kind of weird. I can't remember the name of him right now, but you guys remember who I'm talking about?
It wasn't this year the same as one of your favorite main characters?
Was it Wakka?
Oh
yeah. No, it was.
Wakka.
Yeah. So yeah, Wakka is going to be my also best and worst.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why the worst though? What makes?
Do we need to explain why? I mean, I think it's kind of explanatory if you played the game. So
Wakka.
I know, but
what a lame weapon.
That's the thing, and you rarely ever use them besides sleep or something. I forget why, but
air enemies that
air
are
enemies.
That are flying.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and so yeah, he was the last kind of bench player on both the battlefield and the team of Blitzball.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's my first.
All
right, that's a good one. Dice, what do you think?
I gotta say, I did originally that was going to be one of my votes was Wakka, but I have someone, excuse me, who is even worse in my opinion.
Oh boy,
Barrett from Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Oh man,
that voice acting was just too over the top. So someone needed to pull him aside in the studio and say, "Buddy, we're operating on a 10 right now. Let's bring it down to a 6." But, you're working hard. I appreciate what you're bringing to the game right now, but let's take it down a notch.
Now,
he totally unimmersed me from the experience. It was too much for me.
It's like Prompto from 15, right? Or what was that?
And I agree. And he's the same. He's the same thing.
That was obnoxious. That like you're trying to be too cute there, Squeenix. Now, for the Barrett thing. Is Barrett's character, is his personality not reflective of being at a 10 all the time, though?
Yes, it is. And I got to say, he probably wasn't my favorite character in 7 just to start.
Yeah.
But it seems like in the remake, they amplified it. This is a time when that voice acting brought out the worst for me. It did not enrich the experience. It made it much worse.
Yeah. There's part of that he was just like, you're right. It's like, okay, dude, you gotta chill a little bit. Like, it was at first you're like, okay, this is like, I get it. I get Barrett is angry and he is
you can
the whole time.
With the cause, you're like, yeah, I get it. You're angry. I'd be angry too with what's going on, but it's bad for your heart, man. You gotta breathe.
Oh man, yeah. That's now as far as battle goes, he was pretty good in battle. He had the
And and even in battle, he wasn't my favorite. He was good. He was. I'm not saying he was bad, but he wasn't my favorite.
Yeah, I thought in battle he had a couple of things where he was just so devastating. I remember just thinking like, all right, once I get this all charged up, it's where you just like unload, and I forget what it's called, but it was just I just remember it was devastating for the stagger meter. Um,
Yeah, for me, strictly because of voice acting,
mm-hmm.
Barrett.
Gotcha,
Boy.
gotcha. Scoot, do you want to jump in on that? Anything to say?
I mean, he's as a if we're dogging, I guess you always got to go find Marlene and all that because you got to be a dad and blah blah blah. But not, I mean, I really did enjoy him as a character in the original seven, just because of that dynamic of trying to play dad. But
Mm-hmm.
as a supporting role, to Cloud. Yeah, he's Barrett's really on his own, kind of in my mind, with Avalanche and running that whole thing and doing his own kind of his own thing. The voice acting was over the top. I won't disagree with that, but I also think the character is over the top. So,
Kind of fits the role.
kind of fits the role. There you go.
All right. I think that my the supporting character cast or that I like the least, I'm just gonna say it. It's the entire Final Fantasy 15 squad.
Really?
Ignis and Gladio and they're all the same. They're all the same, but like it's like they were cloned and it was like, all right, you're gonna be a jock, you're gonna be a nerd, you're gonna be British. So, you know, that's pretty much what it was. That's what I felt like. And in you're gonna be emo. So, um, like that's what I felt like. That story was like. All of the characters were just so similar. They even dressed similar.
Yeah.
It was. I mean, did they not? Did they not understand that colors could go on clothing? Like, was that a
That's
foreign
not.
concept?
Oh,
They're
I
just
don't
like,
know.
everything's got to be black or gray, black, gray, or white, because that's what it seemed like.
Now, did you not enjoy like the brotherhood aspect of Final Fantasy 15?
The
It
Brotherhood.
seemed like what one of my favorite parts about Final Fantasy 15 is that it seemed like the characters were well established before you were dropped into the game. They kind of you could tell that they really like appreciated each other. They had like this history before you jumped into the game with them.
Yeah, I mean, I
That didn't do it
guess,
for
but
you.
you
Okay,
just you didn't get to develop it. I guess it was. I mean,
that's
I
true.
guess it
Yeah.
was new, so that was it was a newer idea of they've been together for so long that they're. But it's like you didn't really get to develop that relationship at all. It's like, oh well, this is
Sure.
just here and it's static.
I could agree with that. Yeah.
But I didn't like any of those guys. I thought it was like this is just the most boring. And here's another thing: is like in Final Fantasy games, I think half the fun's finding new characters that you fight with. Like the Dragoon lady was the coolest character in that game. I thought she was rad,
Yeah.
but I don't know. I don't know.
And I do agree with you with that. It certainly is fun to kind of to find a new character and to see how that relationship builds as the game progresses. And
Mhm.
you absolutely did not get to experience that in 15.
No, you didn't. And I think that with 15 also, um, as supporting characters, they just were like buddy bodyguards.
Yeah, you really didn't see much character development except for, and this is not much character development, but you can maybe say Noctis grew a little bit as a character, but for the other three, it really doesn't seem like they grew too much.
No, no, it doesn't. It kind of seems silly, but what do I know? Um, yeah, those characters were I don't know. It seems like they made the game like, let's make it beautiful as we can, and then let's go ahead and, oh, we forgot these characters. So, yeah. Any other just big goofers? The big goofus squad. So my cousin says, what about the redhead dude who threw things in Final Fantasy IX? Yeah. I can't even remember his name, but who was he? Had like a big red afro, I think. Oh man, I can't remember his name, but he was somebody who was like,
yeah, I know.
It's like somebody lost a bet and said, okay, now you lost a bet, you got to put this character in Final Fantasy IX. It's like, dang it, you're gonna find him here, aren't you?
I'm trying to look him up.
That's Amarant.
Amarant?
Yeah.
Amarant Coral. There we go.
Yeah, my cousin brought that up, and it's like, yeah, that lame. Some of those late characters are so insignificant that I don't even know if it's fair to talk about in this realm. So I couldn't tell you anything about that character aside from I never used him.
It was kind of a late game addition. I think he had some uses really late in game stuff if you were gonna go far with him. But
Quina was better.
As a blue mage for sure.
Oh man, Dice or not Dice? Scoot, worst.
Yes.
Oh wait, you did yours. You already did yours. You did Waka.
Yeah.
Dice.
Well, I mean, yeah.
You got another?
Myself, worst supporting character.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have to think of another one off the top of my head. 8, 9, 10, 12. No.
All of 12 characters I found very engaging.
That's the thing is that, they all had some good story and good voice acting and all that. So,
Penelo may have been the weakest of the characters in 12.
but I mean, it wasn't a terrible character as a supporting character in battle or anything like that.
No, it was a fine character, but just as far as like, she just may have been the weakest because she was not as linked into the story as the other ones were.
In 7, I mean,
Now, is there any character from 8 that garners your disdain?
Irvine was always weak and lame.
Irvine gets the boot.
I didn't really enjoy Irvine. I mean, it just kind of seemed like another character. Like, I felt like the biggest role that he had in the game was, hey, you got to snipe homegirl. And then when time came, he's like, can't, too scared, don't want to. It's like, well, enjoy never being in the party again.
You were staying at level 15 permanently.
Yeah, enjoy. What about you? Scoot? What do you think? What do you got over there? Anything else? 8, 9, 7, whatever.
I mean, that's the thing.
I have one more who particularly I did not enjoy. I gave a little bit of love to 13, and now I got to throw it back at him. Got to throw the poop back at him.
It's Hope.
Hope. Hope is bad. For me, it was Saz. I did not like that guy. Did not like that guy.
I liked him just because of his little chocobo.
I did like the chocobo.
The chocobo was okay. The chocobo could stay. Chocobo could stay. Saz go.
But he was keeping the crazy girl sane for half of that. The Australian one or whatever. That's all I remember is that he was the only sane person speaking for most of the game.
Yeah, that's the case. No wonder that game was doomed from the start.
But
I would prefer Hope. Or I would prefer Saz over Hope. I thought Hope was just
he was
obnoxious.
Don't get me wrong.
Boomerang. Like, what a loser.
That was a great impression, Colin.
Yeah. I
No,
appreciate that.
I guess from final thoughts for me is shout out to Vincent as a side character, just because, I mean, who doesn't like vampires?
Yeah, and
Great. Great. I mean, they made an entire game for it.
yeah.
That's also kind of, yeah.
Vincent was one of those characters that was not as integral to the story. Well, he wasn't integral to the story
No,
at all. I mean, he was an
no, not
optional
if you
character.
didn't want it to be that, which is so great. Is that such a cool, and I mean, if you wanted it to be part of the story, it's a big part of the story. You know, a former Turk
I'm
and his traumatic past and all that, and but yeah,
really crossing my fingers over here. He's implemented more into the remake.
Yeah.
oh, it would be so great if he had his own little like. I don't even want to say a side DLC. Just put it in the main story for $60, please.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
But
I think that, I mean, Vincent, if you take a look at Vincent and the fandom that he got as an optional character, he was not somebody you needed to complete the game, and was otherwise inconsequential to the game, but he spins off his own series. He is one of the favorites. He's a late game addition, which means that, he's like, okay, you finally get him. And it's like, okay, now do you want to use it? Like, his limit breaks were okay, but
Yeah.
and he doesn't have a lot of dialogue either.
No,
But
He's just so cool.
it adds
Yeah.
to the mystique, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and his counterpart, the other optional character in 7, Yuffie, yikes.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Oh, but you got the whole Wu Tai War and all that. Maybe
Sure.
it'll be better in this remake, but yeah, in the original, it was an annoying little sister character.
I mean, to get her final limit break, which was gosh, what was it? Something creation. You had to go to Wutai and fight the pagoda, fight your way
Oh, go
all
up
the way
that?
up
Yeah,
the pagoda
yep,
with
yeah.
just her. It may have been final creation, may have been her limit break, her final limit break. I'm not sure, but yeah, not as strong as a character.
Yeah, would agree.
Yeah, she ain't getting no spin-off anytime soon.
Yeah.
I think she was in a fighting game afterwards.
Smash Bros.
No, she wasn't. It
No.
wasn't Smash Bros. It was. I don't know. You could, if you watch, if you YouTube the Final Fantasy retrospective that Game Trailers did, it talks about it in there, which is actually a really good watch if you haven't watched it.
Oh yeah, highly recommended.
Yeah, they need to update that thing.
Maybe one day.
Yeah, maybe we'll do it for them. So, well, here's to hoping that Final Fantasy 16 has some great supporting characters, and they've kind of already laid the groundwork because they've featured 3 characters, and just kind of, I don't know that you see a whole lot of the girl character in the trailer.
You don't. Yeah, you don't.
So that kind of right there tells me, she's probably going to be integral. And is it Joshua, the brother, the younger brother, Joshua?
The little boy. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that,
Joshua.
the fact that they've highlighted 3 characters, one of them you don't really see a whole lot in the trailer. It's like, okay, this could be good, right? We could have something here. Hopefully it's Final Fantasy Tactics like. Hopefully it's deep, rooted relationships, and then they're conniving as well. We'll see. Yeah,
I'm excited.
I am too. Anything else for the good of the order? Is there anyone that we have missed that would be a sin not to say, whether it was good or for bad?
Yeah, I really like to express my shock when Scoot said Waka as his favorite.
Twice. Don't worry.
That completely caught me off guard.
No, I'm glad it did.
I was ready to come out with him being one of my worst.
No, I'm glad it did, because that's the whole point of this, is to come out of left field and create debate.
Well, and that you did.
Yeah,
Mission
go.
accomplished.
Just like George Bush said on that on that aircraft carrier. Mission accomplished.
That's right. Big banner and everything.
Well, all right. Well, I'm excited for the next. I don't know what show we're gonna do next, but I'm looking forward to it. So we got some good ideas on the table, and I do enjoy being able to do this weekly. I know that we're not putting them out weekly, but maybe if we get backed up with enough, start putting them out weekly. But right now, I've been staggering them like every 2 weeks. So
There you go.
we'll see. Anyway, all right, guys. Anything else for the good of the order?
Merry early Christmas. Happy late Thanksgiving.
No, all of those things,
And holidays and other holidays and other holidays.
Kwanzaa and Hanukkah and whatever it is that you celebrate, a great one for that.
Well put.
Thank you. As eloquent as I can be. So, that being said, it's been real.
It's been fun.
It's been real fun, gentlemen. Have yourselves a good night.
And ladies listening out there. I've already hit stop, so it's okay.
I was talking about gentlemen as you two.
Oh.
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 I was on the same page as you, Scoot.
Just get back in there.